Yo, Trevor, you know what day it is?
Yes, sir. It's Tuesday, Jay.
Well, you know what that means.
I believe that means it's time for Tuesdays with Trevor.
Well, hey, hit that music, big fella, because it's time to get this thing rolling. Let's go!
Yeah, let's go. Hello and welcome to Tuesdays with Trevor, a show dedicated to using youth sports to create positive change. Be ready to get inspired, uplifted, and empowered through thought-provoking conversations specific to the world of youth sports with some of the top minds in the game. I'm your co-host, Trevor Rosenthal, MLB All-Star and single-season save record holder for the St. Louis Cardinals, along with Jason Holzer, co-founder of 40 Athletes and best-selling author. Jason, how we doing today?
Hey, man. Doing great. Got an awesome guest on today, talking a lot about the mind and the emotions through breath work, all stuff that needs to be talked about more. But before we get started, who's our shout-out today, man?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, Jason. Today, our shout-out goes to First Form. Not only do they have a great line of supplements to help you meet your fitness goals, but also they have great athletic apparel as well. Check out firstform.com.
All right, now let's meet our guest. Hey, by the way, Trevor, is that a First Form shirt you're wearing right now?
It is, Jason. You know I'll be repping that First Form gear. They have awesome stuff. It's designed exactly for what athletes want, and behind that, incredible brand, great people that are like us, just trying to give back and get the most out of our community.
Yeah, I love it. Well, back to our guest today is Shayamal Vallabhjee, who is a sports performance coach, author, and sports scientist as well. With over 15 years of experience in sports science, psychology, and performance coaching, he helps elite athletes, sports teams, and C-suite executives unlock their potential and achieve excellence. He combines evidence-based research with modern psychology and spirituality to create customized solutions that enhance focus, team building, culture, innovation, adaptability, and pressure management. He's currently a course facilitator at Stanford University School of Business, where he teaches neuroscience of exemplary leadership and for Stanford Lead program. Shayamal, thanks for joining us today. Good afternoon to you over in Barcelona. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Jason. Trevor. Simply excited to be here. Love the energy of the show already. Can't wait to peel away the layers and deep dive. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, for coaches and parents, a lot's been always focused on the physical. It's what you can see. It's what you can measure. It's what you can train. It's what you can, continuously improve on, or at least that you're improving on. But what about more so the mindfulness techniques, that people that are unfamiliar with that, effective ways of introducing breath work, and why is that so important, and how can we train that more, and then also be able to see the fruits of our labor by training that piece of it as well?
Yeah, it's such a beautiful question. So I'll go at it in layers so that those listening and the parents can actually understand. So the first thing you should know is when you're trying to develop an athlete, and a child in particular, or any athlete, there are four components that you're looking at. So you're looking at the physical development, that's how strong and their food. You're looking at the mental development, and then you're looking at the technique with how they swing a bat or a racket or how they kick a ball. And then you're looking at what's called game strategy and awareness, which is the application of their strengths towards a strategy to get a desired outcome for their team or for themselves. These are the four components, irrespective of what sport you're playing. These are the things. So to all the parents listening here, the first thing you want to do, even if you're an athlete, is I ask everyone, I said, score yourself out of 10 on the amount of time you spend developing each of these components. Right? So you'll notice that most people would spend about anywhere between 8 to 10 on the physical. There'll be between 8 to 10 on the technical. They're probably going to be resting between 4 and 6 or 4 and 7 on game strategy, depending on what type of a coach they got. And there'll be anywhere between 1 to 3 on mental. So once you put a score to these four components, the first thing you get right up there is you see where your greatest potential for growth is. It's in an area that you've not tapped. It literally hits you in the face right there. Now, when you look at the application of mental stuff, you look at what is the thing that impacts us the most. The thing that impacts us is stress. When the game gets to a point where there's significant amount of stress, neuroscientifically, your brain kind of shuts down. Cortisol, it goes into survival mechanism, and it stops thinking about all of those options. So everything you thought about, all the advice, everything goes out of the window, and you operate from a system that's very, very threatening. Aspects like breath work, aspects like meditation, and a whole host of other techniques, visualization, for example, imagery. We can talk about all of them, but what they do is they help open up the brain at that moment of pressure. Okay. If you can open up your brain, then you're able to perceive variables in that ecosystem more clearly, and you'll have more options of what to do. And generally speaking, I've spent 21 years working with elite athletes at Olympic level. Generally, at that pivotal moment, okay, the person who's calmest will generally end up being the victor in that situation. The one who's feeling the pressure more is the one who will eventually sort of capitulate in that situation. So, and the relationship between physical and mental is the physicality of your body, the strength of your body, the resilience, physical resilience of your body has to get you to that point for mindset to kick in. That mindset kicks in right in the last, Trevor will tell you, it's in the last innings, it's in the last 2 minutes of a game. But you need to be physically strong to get there, to be able to leverage all that mental work. And I think the reason why most people struggle to understand the impact of mental work in sport is because when you talk of meditation, when you talk of mindfulness, when you talk of visualization, you're doing it in a very tranquil setting, in a very peaceful setting. It's calm around you. And that's so directly different from the environment that you're competing in. So they're not able to see the direct transference of that skill into a high pressure situation. And this is where most of them get stuck. Even practitioners teaching it get stuck. You see, the first part is teaching that skill, getting them familiar with the practice, getting them familiar with noticing what actually happens in the body. And then there's a whole other world with how we take a skill and transfer it into a high performance environment so that that same skill and that benefit gets leveraged in there. So I'll pause for a minute. I've given a lot there, and then we can take it further.
Yeah, it's exactly on point. I agree, and with my experience, there's been so many times where I've been in situations, even for long periods of time, where I'm feeling overwhelmed or just feeling stressed, and then I get to a point where, for whatever reason, that stress becomes alleviated, and I realize my performance correlates. My body even just feels better. I feel lighter, and I'm able to perform at a higher level. And I'm thinking to myself, like, why was I stressed out during that time? And what are the things that I can do to avoid that? And for me, like, a big part of that is pregame routines. I try to do, and people think about pregame routines. Obviously, there's the physical aspect, like we're going to get our bodies warm, we're going to stretch, and we're going to prepare physically. But I'm just wondering, like, from your perspective, what are some good tools that athletes can use to prepare for the mental part of the preparation?
Trevor, great question. So pre-game routine is critical for everything. But pre-game routine doesn't just start in the hour and a half before a game. So what we need to do as athletes is understand that your performance in a particular day starts with the meal you ate the previous night, how you went to bed that previous night, what happened in those 8 hours, how did you wake up, what was the routines with which you lead up to the game, and there are multiple factors that can go into it. From a visualization point of view, game day is all about focusing on that particular task. So you don't want to be reminding yourself of simple things to do. The things that you need to do need to be already automated into your routine. And what it would be very, very useful for athletes to understand, for example, I run an assessment with all of my athletes in all team sports. I go down and ask them simple questions like, I say, hey, Trevor, as an athlete that's coming into competition, in the 90 minutes before the game starts, now we're in the locker room, you're doing the warm-up, you're at the stadium. Are you the type of athlete who likes the coaching staff to give you subtle reminders and nudges about what you need to do? Or are you someone who has your own process and routine and likes to slip into that? So this is such an important and such a powerful question, because this starts to give you and the entire coaching staff information about how you need to be managed. So if you're someone who likes to be left alone, then you got to be doubly sure of your routine. You got to have your checks and balances in place to make sure that you're slowly elevating that mindset till that moment that you need to sort of step on there. And if you're someone who needs to listen to simple messages, then what are the types of messages? What is the duration of the message? Which is the moment that you'd like to receive it? Then you step into, okay, I'm walking into that competitive environment. How do I switch the mind on? When do I switch it on? Am I in the starting 11, so I switch on at minute 1? Or am I sitting in the dugout and I have to walk out a little bit later and then have to be switched on at that moment? How much information do I pull in? Because when you're sitting outside and you're absorbing all of that information, that's depleting willpower. That's also depleting focus and concentration. But yet, when you move in there, you need to sort of step that up. All of these aspects need to be trained, need to be identified. But it starts off by really and truly getting the athlete to draw awareness to what type of an athlete he is, and then we can build process and routine into it. Because the reason why we need routines is because your brain operates on familiarity. It likes things that are highly comfortable. It likes things that it recognizes. So the idea with the routine is to make it so recognizable that the brain can execute it without thinking. Remember, there's beautiful research around willpower. We wake up every single morning with a bank of willpower. And every single decision you make in the day, you pull one withdrawal out of that bank every single day. So some people who wake up and they don't know what clothes to wear, they don't know what breakfast to eat, they don't know which route to do. Before 30 minutes into the day, they've made 25 decisions and all of a sudden they're feeling really, really exhausted. Then you get entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg who wear the same clothes all the time. The reason they're doing that is they're trying to restrict the decision making early on in the day to conserve their energy. The exact same thing needs to happen with athletes. Be aware of what are the critical decisions to take and what should be the routine that we just slip into because we want to conserve our bank of energy. And working with a psychologist or a coach that understands this aspect and is able to make it very granular will make a massive impact.
Yeah, I think that's important, and especially for like youth athletes and talking about youth sports, because the processes at those levels can be a little bit mundane and the action isn't as packed as like a professional level. But those skills are transferable. It's talking about baseball. If you're standing in the field, just because the ball's not put in play or the ball's not hit to you right at that moment doesn't mean that you can't be mentally thinking about what should I do if this happens, or where do I need to be if the ball does get hit into this location. And that was something that I was taught in professional baseball. My first major league spring training, we had Albert Pujols there. Albert Pujols is a Hall of Fame player, played for 20 years in the major leagues and had a great career. And that's something that he was teaching the younger players. It's like, hey, when you're on the bench, when you're not even in the game, I need to be able to come up to you at any point in time and ask you what's going on, and you should be able to give me an exact answer. And so I started to implement this, and I realized it was exhausting. Like I was getting tired mentally that for even the first couple of years of trying to implement this into my game. But then as time got on, like what you're saying, it became less of a willpower and more of a habit at that point. Like at the beginning, it took a lot of effort for me to create this new mental system. But then over time, it became kind of just natural, and it really allowed me to perform at a higher level and focus on some other things that would come up. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, Jason, you want to jump in?
Oh no, I was just saying, like, you talked about that piece of it. How do you simplify what you just talked about for somebody? Let's say, for the 10-year-old, for the 9-year-old, like what are some things that maybe parents can do at home, maybe the night before bed. Maybe they got to go to school the next day. A lot of decisions with that. But then they have practice at night.
Sure.
Is there a simplified process that we could do for parents?
There isn't, I wouldn't call it a simplified process, but what I would draw their awareness to is the 30 minutes before practice starts. When they're getting in the car, their last snack they're eating, whatever it is, try to control the 30 minutes. Don't leave your homework last 1 minute, jump in the car, rushing and eating, listening to all sorts of music, getting into the game, and then expecting to switch on. So if you're 9, 10 years old and you're a parent listening to this, take cognizance of the 30 minutes before practice starts and try to regulate the amount of stimulus and the amount of exposure in there. Try to regulate the decision making. And now, once you can do that with their practice, you'll obviously replicate that on game day, but start replicating that in other aspects of life. So, for example, 30 minutes before you go to bed, how do I start regulating stimulus in there, controlling it in there? 30 minutes before I go to school in the morning, what is it? Maybe 30 minutes before a break or a class starts is too long, but you make a microcycle of 5 minutes in there. So identify the peak areas where you need to be switched on, and then start to draw your awareness to the 30 minutes before that starts and ask yourself, how am I getting into that right mind frame to maximize that? Because if you're not, then you're going to take 30 minutes from the time the class starts to switch on. And that's why you're only going to retain 5 minutes of information. So that it's not about the building blocks in that 30-minute routine, because that's going to be very, very different for every single person. But most kids at 9, 10 years old, that 30 minutes pre-practice doesn't even exist. For them, there's zero awareness going into that. And for professional athletes, we're very, very used to it because that's the time we're in the locker room. So we're switching in, we're building up the energy, the conversation's being channeled to certain things. There's a roster out there. The environment is engineered to control those 30 minutes pre, which is not for kids.
I'm taking notes. So I have three young kids, and I'm thinking to myself, like this you're right on in trying to create that environment and helping them engage, because you do see it. If you ever worked with young athletes, the time that it takes for them to get locked in mentally, by the time that happens, you've missed the opportunity window for the training you're trying to execute on. So that's a great tool to help process and prepare. It's all about being prepared and being able to maximize.
And Trevor, you know why it's also really important? I don't know if for parents and everyone listening, if you look at something is called program design or program structure or lesson planning. Now, this lesson planning doesn't apply to sport. It applies to every single teaching methodology across all fields on the planet. So whether they're learning in school a subject, whether they're learning how to fly a plane, or whether they're learning a sport or a musical instrument, the lesson plan is the same. So what is that lesson plan? The lesson plan is that it's broken up into a third. Right. So the first third is where you teach new skills. The second third is where you're sort of repeating what you already know and making it more ingrained into your process. And the third is where you're having fun and competition. The first third is always learning. If you don't take advantage of the pre-30 minutes, you're always going to miss out on the time when new things are taught, and your learning curve is going to be exasperated and pulled significantly longer, irrespective of where you are and what you're learning, because lesson plan design is exactly the same.
I like that. So first third is learn something new when their mind is fresh. Second third, repeat something familiar. And then the final third is fun. Yeah. Nice. Well, and this will be one moment here. We'll take 20 seconds to continue our conversation. But first, a quick word from 40 Athletes. Are you looking to use sports to build exceptional leaders ready for any season of life? If you're a coach or a parent, check out 40athletes.com, where they have online courses for parents, coaches, to teach them the life skills necessary to become the best version of themselves. Regardless if you're a parent or a coach, 40 Athletes is what you need to help you and your athletes. Be sure to sign up for their Mamba Mentality ebook whenever you go to their website. Now, back to the show. So beyond improving athletic performance, though, like how can, what are some mindful, you talk about breath work a lot. Mindfulness, breath work, it's all connected body, that kind of thing, right? What are some simple things that parents can do to build that 30-minute routine of maybe breath work, of that kind of stuff as well? How do you integrate that? And even during competition, right, when there is those stressful moments, can you teach that in a practice? Is that a new skill you can teach and it create those, simulate those moments and build in some simple breath work techniques?
Yeah, so I've kind of made it really, really simple for my athletes. I don't even use the word meditation. I'm not even, bringing in anything sort of spiritualist. I dial it down really simply. For people who are starting off, I tell them, I want you to just simply be able to sit in a chair, starting with 5 minutes, building up to about 15 minutes, right? Because the impact time in any code of sport is about generally less than 15 minutes, the maximum time that you can make an impact. So build it up to 15 minutes. I need you to sit on the chair, zero digital devices, zero distractions. We're not worried about breathing. We're not worried. First thing is I just need you to be comfortable to sit there without the urge to look at a clock or look at anything. And the first time you get to it, you're going to be happy. But the idea is I want you to get to a stage where you can sit in that chair and that 15 minutes flies by, which means the mind is not engaging with the duration of time. Very, very simple. You're just sitting in a chair. The second one after that is all I want you to do is count your breaths. That's it. So every time you breathe in and you breathe out, it's 1. You go again, 2. And the last number you can remember is your count. And the only goal you have in life, in mental training, is to increase that number. And you can give yourself a matrix. If you want to succeed in sport above that teenage level, you need to at least get to 100, right? If you want to succeed in sport at an elite level, you need to at least get to about 400, 500. And if you want to become a master of your field and dominance, then you need to get to about 600, 700. That means that you can hold your focus on a particular thing for that long enough that you will be able to execute anything that you want to. And it's simple as that. Just 1, 2, and it's the hardest thing on the planet, but it's the easiest practice to do. Okay. When I bring in inhale, exhale, it's too confusing. Just do that. Once you can do that there, we can start to bring in the other mechanisms of breath work that are impacting your physiology. But the biggest problem is not that. The biggest problem that people have is the ability to stay focused on that inhalation, exhalation for it to have an impact. If you can get to 100, 200, 300 on that breath count, you will never have a problem in practice because your mind will be right there every single moment of the day. And I tell athletes that, the mind can only go in 2 places. It can either be thinking of something in the past or it can be thinking of something in the future. These are the only 2 places it can go. If it's in those 2 places, it can only be thinking of one of 2 things, something positive or something negative. And I'll break it down for you. If the mind is in the past and it's thinking of a positive event, a win that you had previously, the voice in your head is going to be one of overconfidence. You're going to think that it's so easy for me. I'm just going to go and replicate the same thing. You're going to pull that confidence to execute. If you're in the past and you're thinking about something negative, there's going to be a fear of failure, because you're thinking of that negative instant. If the mind is in the future and you're thinking of a positive outcome in there, then what you're going to be doing is premeditating the action. You're thinking, I'm going to hit this ball there. I'm going to hit it really hard. This is what I'm going to do. And you're not even aware of any changing variables in the external environment. All you're thinking is, this is what I'm going to do. And those people, 99% of the time, they fail. And if the mind is in the future thinking about something negative, then there's a paralysis of action. You won't even be able to get off the starting blocks because you're so scared. All 4 of these places, positive or negative, are equally detrimental to performance. So the mind has to be in the here and now. And that breathwork counting is the best way to keep the mind from any one of these 4 spots to bring it into the here and now. And the longer you can hold it in here, which is very quantifiable through that number, you can directly correlate it to your success in that sport.
Yeah. So tell me, if I'm doing this breath work, where am I letting my mind go? Is my mind, am I drifting? Am I visualizing, or am I just trying to focus and concentrate on the breath?
You're not focusing on anything. You're recognizing the breath. You're recognizing the air going in and out, and each time it goes out, you add a number to it. As soon as the mind goes anywhere, you're going to lose count. You have to start from 0 again.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the
that's
focus
the
is
idea.
on the number.
The focus is on the number. That's it. Only
That's it.
just the in 1. 2. That's it.
Is that
Just
something you
counting
can
the
do
number. That's
like
it.
in the middle of a like activity? Like let's say you're in the middle of playing. Like, is that something you can
No,
do
you can't.
simultaneously as you're playing, or is that
You
beforehand?
can't do it. You can't do it in the middle of playing, but you can get up to, you can set yourself a goal of getting to 50 to help reset the mind into now. So a lot of my athletes do that in the pre-routine. They walk out to the middle of the football pitch or the middle of the cricket pitch, or they walk into the course on the first tee, and they repeat this exercise in their performance environment. That's also very, very powerful, because when you try and do visualization and mental work at home in your uh, wherever you are at school or somewhere like that, then your brain uses a lot of mental energy in creating the performance environment before it has to learn how to perform that skill. But when you go and do that in the environment that you're playing, then the brain uses no energy because the environment's already created. So everything pours into the execution of that there. So, if you're going to do any mental work, do it in your competitive environment where you want to play that sport, because you'll find significantly more gains coming from there. But all we're focusing is on that number, nothing else.
That's really insightful and very simple at the same time. So, but the key is continuing to get a little bit better each time to get that number higher. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. You want to get like how you want a career best in number of hits or pitches or golf swings or distance. This is the number you got to track for your mental strength.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm wondering, like on the flip side too, like post competition, post training, is there a similar technique to help kind of wind down from the process and then set yourself up for the next day?
Absolutely. So in the evening, you can set you don't have to go as long as possible. So you can set a number, I'd say 25. So you're counting to 25. 25 brings your focus in. And then you do 10 long exhalations. So you exhale longer than you inhale, which stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system and brings the body to rest, that way. So you guys asking a really interesting question. When do you do it? How do you do it? So for everyone listening, you must understand when is a training session and when is a performance session. So sometimes you're going to do this exercise where the goal is to go as high as possible. That is a training exercise. You sit down training wise. You don't have any coffee before that. The 30 minutes before that, you control the environment. You make sure you sit in a good room, because you're going to begin this exercise and you're going to count as high as possible. When you want to do it as part of your pre-routine for pre-competition, then I got to count of 50. If you're going to do it before I go to sleep, I got to count at 25. The goal is not to go as high as possible. The goal is on the quality to that number, and those sessions there have a specific outcome as compared to the session where you're training yourself to go as high as possible. And it's the exact same level of awareness that you need to bring to everything. So when you're standing at the pitching plate or you're hitting when you're batting, what is the purpose of the session? For the next 15 minutes, what am I looking at? Am I tracking the release of the ball from the pitcher's hand? Or am I measuring the impact of the ball? Am I looking at the transference of my weight, how it goes back foot to front foot, how my hands are rotating through? What is that? When you bring that level of awareness in, that particular aspect will significantly improve. It's the athlete who doesn't have the ability to disassociate the outcome of micro goals is the one that plugs it all together and is the one that doesn't improve. So this skill and the session planning with this simple exercise like just counting your breath can have multiple effects on varied aspects of your training and life as well.
No, that's I think in these things that you're talking about, it's the behind the scenes that a lot of the audience and the public that doesn't have a chance to see. But every great athlete, it doesn't matter who it is, if it's a baseball guy, Albert Pujols or LeBron James, they're putting in so much work on the mental side and working with guys like yourself, Shayamal, like guys that obviously you're very intelligent and you understand the science and the psychology behind these tools and how it can help athletes perform, how it can help business leaders and help anybody get the most out of what they're trying to do. And it's simple at the same time, right? It can almost seem too simple, but to hear you explain this simple breath work and then the impact that it can have, I think it's important for anybody to implement into their game. So we appreciate you coming on today and joining us. This has been so helpful, and I think it's going to help a lot of people, myself included. This is a constant reminder that we always have opportunities to get better in every sort of way. And it's something that I want to implement into my game, and then also helping my children and other players at the same time. But I don't know, before we wrap up, do you have any other words of wisdom to leave us with, and maybe tell us where we can find you and how we can best connect with you?
Thank you so much, firstly, Trevor, Jason. I love this initiative of bringing friends on. I call them friends, not experts. That's what we are, to help the youth improve in some shape and form. If you're looking for me, you can find me on Instagram. My name is Shayamal, and it's spelled Shayamal. So either on LinkedIn or on Instagram, you can find me, write to me there, and I'll definitely reach out. And it's been such a pleasure connecting. If you have any questions and I can help you or your child in any shape and form, just write to me, and I'll do everything in my power to guide you in some shape and form.
Yeah, Shayamal, well, I appreciate you again coming on today. I feel like there's always so much I learned from you. We could probably go for another hour and a half if we wanted to, but try to keep it short so people that are at practice, that kind of stuff, have 30 minutes to dive in, catch something quick. So we might have to do a part 2 at some point, but thanks again for being here today.
Be sure to check out 40athletes.com. Check out resources for parents, coaches, and athletes. Follow 40 Athletes and Jason on social media as well. We got a lot of dynamic content coming your way. And that's our show. If you like this episode, be sure to give us 5 stars, leave a review, comment, let us know future guests and topics that we can talk about on Tuesdays with Trevor. But until then, we'll see you next time.